Baby kids. It's a lovely place.
Some days you just want to work.
So I know.
It is true. In my case, every day.
Okay, thanks.
Anybody else need to do any of the cords, wires, and
Yeah, I gotta get audio.
okay.
Just 1 sec.
I always want this to go down.
Yeah.
Actually, one of the very first announcements I was ever at the premiere included two other ministers who were taller than me but shorter than him.
Good.
They actually had a succession of stools. I actually take responsibility for the fact that he now has a hydraulic that has become much more professional. Oh, no, was it? Oops. There you go.
The stools on name tags?
No, I think
Urban
it
Mayor's
was,
Caucus.
it was pretty obvious, actually, who was wearing it. I won't name the other two.
Okay, that's what it is, yes. Just tell me if you're rolling, because they're waiting for me.
That's okay. Yes, yes, there would be. Yeah. But I'm gonna let you make that. Okay. That's right.
Thank you, I'll tell them to go ahead. Thank you.
You're
Sorry
done?
about that, go ahead.
That's okay. Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us today. I'm Marianne Alto, I'm the Mayor of Victoria, but today I'm actually speaking with you as the co-chair of the BC Urban Mayors Caucus. On behalf of the BC Urban Mayors Caucus and in partnership with UBCM, I'd like to address some issues that we've confirmed through some surveys about gaps in housing that are pushing municipalities into actions that we all believe are better left to the province. But before we begin, every time that we gather here in Victoria and before we do any work whatsoever or commentary, we always take a moment to acknowledge the fact that we do so here on the traditional and contemporary territories of the Lekwungen people, the Songhees Nation and the Caucus Nation. And this conference center where we are today actually rests on some of the most traditional territory of the Caucus, an area that was reclaimed or filled in, depending upon your perspective, to house the Empress Hotel. It's important for us to acknowledge and express our gratitude to the nations for the decades, generations, centuries of stewardship that both have undertaken in order to preserve these lands and the waters that surround them, so that we may in fact gather as we do today to do the important work that we all do in this community, and also to recognize that the Urban Mayors Caucus spreads throughout the province and is on many, many different nations, traditional and contemporary territories. Here in Victoria, we say Hachikasiyam Nakwilia, and that is to say thank you, express our gratitude, and honor the leadership of the nations and the community. Today, the BC Urban Mayors Caucus and UBCM are joining together to call on the province to take urgent action to fill significant gaps left in housing that lead to increased homelessness. Earlier this year, the BCUMC and UBCM partnered to launch a survey across our members to understand what kind of gaps exist in housing and what this is costing local governments. We asked our members a broad series of questions, a couple of examples, whether or not your municipality has housing projects that are on hold due to a lack of provincial action and funding, how many households in your community are on BC housing wait lists and how long they are, and are you incurring and tracking costs related to increased homelessness. Unsurprisingly, all of the municipalities shared that they have projects waiting, that the BC housing wait lists are far too long, and that they're experiencing significant increased costs associated with responding to this lack of housing and the homelessness to which it leads. Every dollar that is spent responding to homelessness is costing local governments, our staff, and our residents in services, infrastructure, and programs that we would otherwise be doing that contribute to all of the quality of life issues that we all want to have in our communities. It's impacting our ability to deliver recreation, parks, transportation, public works, arts and culture, and all of the other amenities that people rely on to make their cities and communities livable. Making choices to defer and diminish plans and programs has a significant negative effect on what we're able to do in our communities. And we have been doing that, and we're expecting and asking the provincial government to do the same. Just for your information, the BC Urban Mayors Caucus is made up of 16 of the largest communities in BC, representing over 60% of the population of the province. And this is a challenge that we are experiencing in every community, and not just in our caucus, but we expect also in some of our smaller colleagues' communities as well. Our data shows that there are approximately 3,300 units of housing across the BC Urban Mayors Caucus municipalities that are on hold due to a lack of provincial funding and support. And in some cases, these projects have been on hold for almost a decade. Today, we are presenting the province with these survey results and urging them to do more to address their own gaps. Local governments want to be partners. We know how to be partners. We've shown that we can be good partners. And we know that we can do this in a way which will solve homelessness and diminish the costs of that to our local residents. But we need the province to deliver on the most urgent types of housing. There need to be destinations for unhoused folks to go. We want to work together to solve all of these challenges. And so we're calling on the province to take action to accelerate project delivery and to streamline their own projects and funding, to ease the burden on local governments and services by providing dedicated staff, financial support and resources, and to urgently address sheltering, encampments, sanitation, and other services for people experiencing homelessness. I want to turn for a moment now to the president of UBCM, Trish Mandelo, to further elaborate on some of these issues.
Thank you, Mayor Alto, and good afternoon, everyone. And thank you all for being here. The report we are releasing today provides some data from BC's largest communities that put some numbers to the gaps in the kind of housing available in British Columbia. The report also starts to shed light on just what the cost is when local government pick up the province's tab. What we are seeing on the ground is a deep need for supportive and affordable housing. The number of people who do not have stable housing has substantially increased in recent years, and all of us can see that from the homeless and encampments that we see throughout our communities. Local governments are trying to help. Some have started their own housing agencies. Some have been buying land, offering nominal fees, and waiving fees. But our resources are limited to address what is truly a provincial responsibility. In partnership with the BC Urban Mayors Caucus, UBCM has collected some data from 14 of BC's largest communities to slow down or to show where the gaps are and illustrate the impact of the recent legislative changes. And here's the top line. 21,000 households are on the wait list for help from BC Housing, and that doesn't even include families in non-urban communities or the housing nonprofits that operate separately from BC Housing, and they have their own waiting list. More than 3,000 homes are on hold between 6 urban communities because they're waiting for provincial funding. Local governments are working hard to support housing, and this survey shows the receipts. They're buying land, offering nominal fees, funding their own housing authorities, awarding grants to local housing initiatives, and shouldering substantial cost increases for fire and for police departments, and they're also providing care and responses to people experiencing homelessness. The housing needs reports local governments have been required to produce or show that there is a need for about 31,000 below market units, just among 13 urban communities. But local governments do not have the tax base to make this happen. So the survey gives data to what we already know, and we need more support from the province to build enough supportive and affordable housing. So we hope that this data will help open the door for collaboration, based on the real situation we are facing on the ground and trying to get the people of BC housed. Thank you very much.
Stay here. Thanks very much, Trish, and I want to thank actually my colleagues. This is quite an amazing thing because we meet, as you can imagine, across the province online. And so it's a rare thing to actually have new people standing behind me that aren't this big. So thanks everybody for making the time to come and join us today. Data is key, as Trish noted, and one of the really important things about this particular survey is it's created some really important evidence-based data that we can share with the province and which we hope we can use to actually cause a better collaboration and to instigate some action that will actually address some of these huge gaps. I'm actually going to be going into a lot more detail this afternoon at a 2 o'clock session later downstairs, I believe. And so if you'd like to follow up on this, it would be great for you to join in or at least follow that after the fact. That's what we had to say today. We're happy to take any questions if there are for either one of us.
Could you maybe put it in context for the other 2 o'clock session about street disorder? You mentioned homelessness, the lack of what you're seeing, provincial supports for crime, addiction, homelessness, and housing from the provincial government in that context?
Well, I'll just speak on a local level. Obviously, some of you are well aware of the fact that the City of Victoria, just a month or so ago, decided to redirect funds from a number of really critical and previously decided priorities to throw more than $10 million into some very dedicated funding to deal with policing, public works, bylaw, other municipal services, but also not just dealing with the response and the reaction to homelessness, but in trying to invest almost 3/4 that amount actually into the upstream investments that deal with trying to provide social services, housing services, shelter services, transportation, a whole variety of different upstream investments to hopefully slow the need for additional policing, bylaw, and public works services. And we're not alone by any means, although I do think we're probably one of the most aggressive movers at the moment. But it's just one example of how the gaps in providing social services, health services, and housing are driving local governments into the necessity of filling the gaps any way they can. And as Trish well noted, we have only the one taxpayer, and our taxpayers are not expecting to spend that kind of money on issues which are clearly within the provincial realm. So one of the things that homelessness is driving cities into doing is redirecting funds from other important issues into dealing with the reaction and the investment in prevention of all of these issues.
And I can add to say, if you look across the province, you will see that housing is only one of the issues. You have an intersection between the opioid crisis, you've got a mental health crisis, and you've got the wrong type of housing sometimes being produced. So as Mayor Alto alluded to, we need a housing continuum that then can really help these people go through the right housing and with the right supports in order for them to really move away from the homelessness that we are seeing throughout the province.
It's been, 4 years or so that these overlapping crises have been the biggest issue that the urban affairs office has been talking about year after year, and it doesn't seem like any municipality is particularly more pleased today than they were 4 years ago on this. Is the government fundamentally on the right track on these issues and they just need a little bit more prodding, or is their current approach something that just needs a fundamental reset?
That's a great question, and I think, as I mentioned earlier, the Urban Mayor's Caucus is super eclectic, and so the fact that we've landed on 3 or 4 priorities, including this one, on which we all agree, does indicate the degree to which this is a crisis. I can't answer on behalf of the province. We always start by saying that we appreciate what the province has done. I think one of the challenges is that the pace is very slow, and certainly given the speed with which these crises have developed, and the length of time it's taken for them to become critical, we would have hoped certainly that there would be a bit more of a priority spent on them. It's hard to say, you're asking an impossible question. Millions of dollars have been spent on this. Has it gone for naught? No, it's changed people's lives. Has it solved the problem? No, it hasn't. And I don't think if there was a simple answer to it that we'd still be standing here. This is an incredibly complex problem, with a series of problems, that we all have to be part of the solution. And one of the things that President Mandeo, I think, spoke so eloquently to is the fact that it's not okay for local governments to be now holding the majority of the responsibility. And I don't think that many local governments would think that that is something that they can bear for very long, if at all. We have to look to the province, but we have to be partners for sure.
And a
Hang
follow-up.
on just a second, just before you do follow up. I'm gonna do one at a time and then I'll come back to you. So I saw somebody over here, yeah.
Emily Javeski, Vista Radio. I'm wondering, so there's a resolution calling for a more regional approach to address homelessness. So I'm wondering if you could provide some examples of, some specific examples about how a regional approach would benefit your communities.
I can take that one first. So as you know, you've got communities that are different sizes all throughout the province. So if each community is to go in isolation and try to have the resources to support the housing, you can see how that can actually slow us down. So when the resolution came forward to have a regional approach, that is actually a special resolution from our executive from UBCM. What we're saying is we are stronger together. So see who is offering what. And in a way, the survey actually told that story as well, to where if we share the stories of what's working and what's not working, and we share the stories of where we can collaborate, then the regional approach will really help us collaborate with the province and be able to deliver more housing in a more efficient way.
Yes.
Chris Rand, Cross Border Network. I'm assuming if I spoke to every single one of the mayors behind you right now and I asked them when's the best time to solve this issue, it would have been yesterday.
Correct.
Not a month from now. Giving a survey over seems like a very small, actionable piece that you're going to be doing here. What do you do in the meantime? Because it seems like you're finger pointing and saying this issue is not a municipal issue. But if I go talk to residents right now, they'll say, we don't care whose responsibility it is. We want it solved yesterday. How does giving a survey to the province help residents inform them saying the municipality is doing something?
All right, Fred.
I can take it first. So all of you that are here need to help local governments to tell this story. Because the residents, as you said, they need the problem solved and they don't care who does it. But we all know that our hands for local governments are tied. We do not have enough revenue to support this work. We are wanting to help the province to deliver its mandate. We are willing partners, but they have to bring the money. And I often like to say the federal government has all the money, the provincial government has all the power, and local government have all the problems. But might I add, we also have the solutions, right? So we need to tell the residents that story to say, we're here, we want to collaborate, but our hands are tied.
But specifically to your question around the survey, yes, is it one small thing? Of course it is. Are there a million things we need to do? Of course we do. But one of the important pieces about this is that it speaks to the evidence and reality of these particular municipalities. They're not unique in the sense of the issues I think you will hear a lot about over this week while we're here at UBCM, but they are different in degree. And looking at the evidence that each of these municipalities have kindly shared provides their a database which we can then use to support our assertions. It's one thing to tell the stories, which are critically important because they're human. It's another thing to be able to add to that layer the evidence and data that supports those stories. Somebody, yes, go ahead.
Mary Brooke from Line on Social Trends. You mentioned that there are 3,000 units or 3,000 projects that have been waiting for up to 10 years. Where are the points that can be changed? Is it developer financing? Is it availability of land? Is it infrastructure being behind schedule?
So it's actually 3,000 homes that are waiting for funding, and that funding does come through the provincial government and mostly through BC Housing. So it's, you apply and then you're told there's no funding. And you just have to go on the waiting list.
So we get approvals, and then we even go to the point where there's some work that's being done, and the local governments either agree to provide or are partners in providing the land, and then it stops. And so you have the piece that we've talked about this morning specifically around streamlining processes. The money is really critical, obviously, but the processes are almost as critical because even when there seems to be money there is this oddly inert sort of sense of process where you get to a certain point and it just stops. So there's lots of, that's why we talk about streamlining processes, we talk about money, and we talk about commitment. Any other first questions? Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, based on your appeal, and this is not the first time we've heard for more money from the municipalities to based on your most current appeal, how would you sort of rate the response from the government given the financial pressures that the province faces? We've seen the update last week. know that the province is in deep doo-doo, pardon my French, when it comes to the finances. So how would you rate the likelihood that this time around, based on all the previous appeals, that the government is finally going to act? So this doesn't strike me as a knowledge issue, but an action issue. So can you talk about the sort of manufacturing
From UBCM's perspective, we're not only talking about housing, we are also challenging the province to look at the economic status of the province. How can we change the narrative? We can't continue to do things the same and expect different results. So if we don't have the GDP changing, we can't address all these issues. So what's happening on that side that can then help to move all these other initiatives forward?
And from the Urban Mayor's Caucus perspective, each of our municipalities have been faced for some years now, but this year I think in particular, with some incredibly difficult decisions, and we're making choices. We're making choices about what we believe our residents believe are our priorities that they've told us over and over and over again. That means, Victoria's the example I know best, is that we diverted money that was already committed to other important things. Other municipalities are doing the same thing. So should the province. Yeah.
2.5 years ago, I think, the NDP government drained $1 billion from you guys that you didn't even ask for. The big bonus payment, and we were looking at $5 billion more. I guess it was all mostly infrastructure.
Yes.
And I don't need an itemized account of what you did with that. But was any of that used for this problem that you're describing?
That was specifically directed at infrastructure and community development, and so you will have seen in most municipalities that dealt with recreation upgrades, not social services, but a variety of different infrastructure upgrades, so not housing.
Yeah, I'll give you an example. City of Coquitlam got $18 million.
Yep.
What do you do with $18 million when it comes to housing or infrastructure? There isn't much you can do. So yes, it did go sometimes to do some work towards planning for housing, but really you couldn't use that money for too much. We tend to reference it a lot, but the province does need a long-term plan for infrastructure to support all this housing densification that they're asking for, because we cannot go without one or the other. And UPCM actually right now has a special resolution calling for them to match the housing growth that they're asking for with infrastructure.
Yes, that's right. I think we need to call it pretty soon because I believe we do have it. 5 more minutes. Okay. You had a second question?
Yeah, you talk about how these issues are increasingly being felt in smaller communities as well. I guess, and if either of you have a particular anecdote or if there's one of you folks behind, when smaller communities say, hey, this is starting to pop up in our communities in ways that we haven't before, what would the benefit of 5 years going through this cycle do you say to them that you think is important, really critical now that 4 years ago we weren't having the same conversation around?
Oh, that's a question. I would say prepare for the future. It's all coming towards you. All of these issues are the same in virtually every community, and you'll hear all week if you're here. The difference is degree. And so in the larger urban communities, obviously we have the largest and perhaps most concentrated challenges, but you'll hear from mayors from Cornell, from Prince Rupert, from Fort Hardy, a number of different places. They have the same issues. And so the issues that they can learn from us is get prepared and make sure that you make the decisions that you need to make about priorities and choices, but that you continue to lobby the province to do its own work.
Is that an admission you weren't as prepared as you could be?
No, not at all. It's a matter of being prepared for something that was a landslide.
Yeah. And I can add to that to say, take for example the city of Cranbrook, that also is having the same problems. If you go up north, you've got cities that are having the same problem. And for them, it gets even more complex because then people can't find jobs because they don't have housing, right? And they also have the opioid crisis and they also have the mental health crisis. So it is a problem that is all over the province, not only for the big urban mayors.
Trish, any last comments before we wrap up? We have to go out for sessions.
Yeah, I would just like to add to say, I love the fact that the BC UMC collaborated with the UPCM because this issue is not only an issue for BC UMC, but for the whole province. And for us to be involved, to be able to tell this story, only helps for us to advance this work. So I want to thank all of you.
And I would echo that to say that BC Urban Mayor's Caucus obviously has a concentration of issues that deal with the largest cities in the province, but They're indicators of every community, and I hope that the collaboration with UBCM is the beginning of many more, because together I think we have a unique combination of resources and skills that we can offer for all of our residents in every community. So thanks for coming today, and as I say, we'll be doing more information at the sessions that's starting at 2 o'clock.
Thank you so much.